Sometimes it's not always about the worries, but about the celebrations. And it can be really lonely being in a classroom as one adult to all of those children. And if you're going home to a family that doesn't know anything about teaching, it's hard to celebrate those small wins. And as veteran teachers, we can really be there to listen to those small wins and congratulate them and revel in that joy.
Those are such good tips, especially I think not assuming that they know what to do at this point.
Welcome to Rainbow Skies for Teachers, the go-to show dedicated to teachers who want to make a big difference in education. Whether you're in your first few years or well into your teaching career, we are here to inspire, support, and empower you with bite-sized tips, simple strategies, and the motivation to lead an education revolution, one classroom at a time.
We're Ashley and Alicia from Rainbow Sky Creations, two Aussie teachers who love all things teaching and learning. We are here to help you thrive as you work toward making an impact in your students' lives while loving your life as a teacher.
We are here to help you bring joy, simplicity, and creativity into your classroom on the daily, because
there are rainbows ahead, my friend, and together we're unstoppable.
Let's get into today's episode.
Rainbow Sky Creations acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Dharawal and Whadjuk Noongar people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
Welcome back to Rainbow Skies for Teachers. Here we are, Christmas is looming. If you're listening to this in real time, this episode is being released on the 23rd of December. So we've got 2 days to get ourselves organised and ready for Christmas. And no doubt, at this very moment, Alicia and I are running around like headless chooks because we've had business to run this year. We've had new offers. We've got exciting things happening in January. And we've just left our kids and our Christmas and all the things to the last minute. But I'm sure it's going to be great. Now, today's episode is something that we have never done before. This is a first for our podcast. We are actually replaying an interview that I, Ashley, did with another podcast earlier this year. Now, we originally were talking to Heidi and Emily on the Teacher Approved podcast about tips for new teachers, but this is not just for new teachers. This is tips, strategies, ideas for teachers through the whole spectrum, from teachers that are just starting out all the way through to teachers that have been teaching for a really, really long time. If you combined Emily and Heidi and my experience, oh my gosh, I think we'd be almost at 100 years of teaching. Would it be that much? Actually, it probably wouldn't. Maybe it would be close. Anyway, that is a complete digression. We have so many good teacher chats during this episode, and we thought, why not share it here for all of you to hear if you have missed the Teacher Approved podcast? So we're going to bring you that today. We do mention some of our new teacher resources throughout the episode. There is a freebie if you are a new teacher, and we will put the link to that in the show notes. And Transform Your First Years is now a course. So if you're a teacher, a new teacher, and you just want to get ahead of the game, then that course is available to you, and I will put that in the show notes too. The final thing we talk about is our community of like-minded teachers. And as you may know, if you've been listening to the pod for a little while now, is that we have got a brand new membership coming. Now, this membership is something really special. It's something huge. It's something that we've never done anything or created anything like this before at Rainbow Sky Creations, and we know our teachers are going to love it. Think endless resources. Think like-minded teachers. Think support, community, and just that overall feeling of making teaching really fun as a profession and fun for the students in your classroom. If that membership sounds like, a little bit interesting, I'd like to know a bit more, we will put the link to the waitlist in the show notes. Make sure you're on that waitlist because that means you will know everything you need to know as soon as we release that information. So the link to our new membership waitlist is in the show notes. If you're listening to this in the future, it's crazy to think that people might be listening to this in the future, then maybe that membership is open and you'll be able to join, or maybe the doors are currently closed and you'll need to join the waitlist. Either way, go and click on that link. This is something you do not want to miss. Okay, without further ado, introducing my interview with Emily and Heidi from the Teacher Approved podcast.
This is episode 120 of Teacher Approved. Hey there, thanks for joining us today. We are so excited because today we get to share with you our interview with Ashley from Rainbow Skies for New Teachers, a podcast that we love. Ashley is one half of Rainbow Sky Creations, an Aussie duo dedicated to helping teachers survive and thrive the ups and downs of teacher life. They are resource creators, online mentors, and fellow teachers who want to help you work smarter and not harder. We cannot wait for you to hear her episode all about how to nurture and support the new teachers that you know. And if you're a new teacher yourself, you will love her tips.
You're listening to Teacher Approved, the podcast helping educators elevate what matters and simplify the rest. I'm Heidi.
And I'm Emily. We're the creators behind Second Story Window, where we give research-based and teacher-approved strategies that make teaching less stressful and more effective. You can check out the show notes and resources from each episode at secondstorywindow.net.
We're so glad you're tuning in today. Let's get to the show.
We are so excited to have Ashley from the Rainbow Skies for New Teachers podcast here with us today. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to talk to you all the way from Australia, as you can probably hear from my accent.
We love it. And you and your partner, Alicia, love supporting new teachers. Is that right?
We sure do. We remember what it felt like to be a new teacher. It was many years ago now, but we can still remember what it felt like, that feeling of overwhelm, that feeling of there's so many things to do. I'm just not sure where to start, where to go, how to get help. So we want to make sure that we're those people for new teachers. If they don't have someone trusted in their school or they don't have a community that they can lean on, they can come and join us in our community.
That is such a gift to give a new teacher. I remember my first year of teaching was even way, way before yours, where the internet was barely a baby back then. And so it was just so isolating to feel like I'm in this role and I don't know what's happening. So I can't imagine what a gift it is to have a community of people that are in the same boat as you, but also to have these mentors that are there to support and help you figure out what the next step is. So many decisions have to be made as a new teacher. And so to have some hand holding has got to be such a gift for our new baby teachers that need our support if we want to keep growing our profession.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ashley, what are some common concerns and worries that you think new teachers face?
I think that this list really is endless, but don't worry, we won't talk for an hour about this. I'm just going to give you some of the common ones, but I think the first one really is around the idea of imposter syndrome. And if your listeners don't know what imposter syndrome is, it's when you go out and you're doing your job and you feel like everyone is going to somehow work out and figure out that you don't know what you're doing, that you're not supposed to be there. And I think that new teachers really do feel this, especially when you might have gone straight from school to study and then straight into the classroom and you're feeling that little bit younger. You don't have the life experience and you think, oh no, these parents of these students are older than me and they're going to work out that I don't really know what I'm doing. So I think that's one huge worry and concern. And that is a concern that people have in all sorts of jobs. I was watching a documentary on Robbie Williams the other day, and he was saying that well and truly after he was famous, he was going out to do a big show and he had a huge, awful, deep feeling of imposter syndrome. And I thought, wow, if Robbie Williams can feel that, no wonder teachers going into the classroom can feel it. So I think that that is a big issue. And then there's other common things that we are always hearing from new teachers, like classroom management. They're worried that they're not going to be able to manage the class or certain behaviors that come their way. They're worried about fitting all the curriculum in. How do I fit all of the stuff in? And there's always seems to be things being thrown at you left, right, and center. And to any new teachers out there that are listening, this gets easier over time because you learn how to handle all of those things being thrown your way. But that is another concern. And then, of course, parents is a concern too. Dealing with parents, talking with parents when they have issues and you're not quite sure how to help them or they're cranky. And I mean, as a veteran teacher, sometimes I feel a little worried about parents too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Parents can be scary. One of the things we like to say to our new teachers, though, is that when parents come in, Their job is to advocate for their child. So that's their number one job. And that is all that they're doing. They're just being mostly protective. It's not generally about you. It's generally their emotions are high because they're talking about their own child. So sometimes we need to remember that and just remove ourselves. Like, it's not personal.
Yes, I love that. So what can new teachers do to best set themselves up for success?
Well, there's a few things that they can do to set themselves up for success, but it's all really, in my opinion, it's mindset based. So one of the things that I love to say is your to-do list as a teacher is always never ending. Like, you could continue to add things to that list forever and ever, and you're never going to get through it all. You could stay at school all weekend and there would still be things to do on that to-do list. So one mindset shift I like to tell our new teachers is look at that to-do list as a wish list. So anything that you get ticked off that list is a bonus, not just, one thing down, a million things to go. So I love that analogy. I also love the idea of pulling one or two key things from your to-do list. So have a master to-do list, pull one or two key things to do each day and putting that big list aside, because then you're going to get a feeling that you've actually achieved something in the day instead of feeling like you didn't get very much done because there's like a million things to do and you only got 2 of them done. So that's one little tip that I like to give. Another one is choose an afternoon after school to make completely yours and make it the same afternoon each week. And when I say that, I mean get yourself all packed up. When the bell goes and you finish all of your duties and anything that you have to do, leave school straight away and go and do something for you. It might just be going for a walk. It might be indulging in a hobby that you enjoy. You might love drinking coffee, so you can go and grab a coffee with a friend or read a book, anything that you enjoy. If you're a parent, maybe you want to just go and have some quality time with your kids that afternoon. But leaving school that afternoon and making it a weekly routine can really be helpful, because I think all of the time, let's be honest, you could stay at school really late just to try and get ahead of the game. And what we need is time for ourselves to refresh and re-energize, because the more that we are refreshed and re-energized, the more that's actually going to help you be a good teacher. And I think that we need to remember that to be the very best teacher that we can be, we need to be rested. We need to be feeling good within ourselves. We need to make sure that we fit in all of those things that really fill our bucket, really fill us up. Hobbies, connecting with people that you really enjoy connecting with. So you don't want your whole life to become about school. At first, that might seem fun, but over time it wears you down and you get resentful.
And you can't pour from an empty cup.
No, you really can't pour from an empty cup. I think if we keep that in the top of our mind and just remember, if you are not caring for yourself, then in turn, you're not really caring for your students because they're not going to get what they need.
Those are such good tips for new teachers, but I think maybe even veteran teachers need to hear that as much, if not more. Like, it's so easy to just like death by to-do list, right? You're never going to feel caught up. And so it's so easy. And maybe this is just me talking, but it's just so easy to feel like I can't do it all. So if I'm taking any time out from like trying to do it all, I'm going to get farther behind, instead of seeing as like, if I'm taking the time to pour into myself, to connect with myself and my life and what matters to me, I'm going to have so much more energy and willingness to keep trying, instead of like just letting me get snowed under by all the impossible tasks that are just heaped on us every day. It makes such a difference.
It does. Sometimes we heap tasks on ourselves as well. We think, because teachers are generally high achievers, we want the best for our students. We want to do the very best job. So we're adding things to that list. But I think about when I take my kids to the emergency room. If your child has got a broken arm or a cough, they're not going to be seen by the doctor straight away. Someone who has got a much bigger problem may come in and jump the line. And I think that's a triage system. And I think if we look at our to-do list and triage our to-do list, some things are really important. Some things have a deadline. Get those things done. And then there's other things on there that are just things that you would really love to happen. And if you don't get them done, then that is okay. And you need to give yourself permission to be like, that's okay. I'm going to leave that. Maybe I'll try it next year. teaching's the long haul. You're in it for many, many years. It's not just a one go this year and then you're done.
Yeah, that's something we try and do here at the Teacher Proof podcast. Is our tagline is to elevate what matters and simplify the rest. And that just is something that comes with practice, but also with practice, you have to keep that in your toolbox so that you're always kind of having that framework of evaluating things like, is this really going to move the needle? Is this worth sacrificing my free time for? Is this going to make a difference for my students? Or is it just something that, looked really cool on Instagram? It's such a filter to have all the time.
Yeah, it sure is. I think, you guys were teaching before Instagram was a thing?
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I started teaching before really you got emails from your principal, which was actually quite blissful. But I think that having Instagram and Pinterest, they're great to share ideas, but it can also really add to that overwhelm.
Definitely. And for veteran teachers too. And here at Teacher Approved, a lot of our audience is veteran teachers. And so I think it would be good to talk about what we as veteran teachers can do to support those new teachers. So what can veteran teachers do to help those new teachers? Because we typically think of helping new teachers early in the school year. But here in the US, where a lot of our listeners are, what kind of support do new teachers need as the school year is kind of coming to an end?
Yeah, we do help new teachers that first day, that first week. We're checking in on them. We have our first lot of parent meeting nights. We check in on them, and then they're kind of left to their own devices. And I think that new teachers, they do need help, not only in that first year, but the first couple of years, because a lot of things we do as teachers, we're doing them once, and then we don't do them again until the following year. So it's really hard to get into a bit of a routine. So definitely keep checking on those new teachers in your building as the year goes on. They might need help with, what do I need to do at the end of the year to wrap everything up? There might be some sort of testing that you need to do. I know in Australia we need to do some standardized testing towards the end of the year. We need to pack up our classroom. If you're moving classrooms to a different grade or a different classroom, there's a bit of an art in that as well. And I know veteran teachers would say, well, start organizing things a few weeks out. Those little tips can be huge for new teachers. So supporting them with any little things that are coming up. The other thing is, if you've got any events coming up, just supporting them into knowing what to expect. We're having this big assembly. It's really long. Make sure that your students go to the toilet before, or give them I always like to give my kids a little snack break before they go to that really long assembly, because they can get really, unsettled. Just little tips like that can be so helpful. And I know as a new teacher, when I've been given little tidbits like that along the way, it has helped so much. So don't leave them to their own devices. Check in on them. Ask them how they're going. If they're having any trouble with any students, because we know that sometimes students can tend to get a little bit more unsettled towards the end of the school year as well. And maybe they may be all out of their different strategies and their own toolkit, and they're looking for some more ideas. And one thing that I know about veteran teachers is that we have got this endless big Mary Poppins bag full of different tips and ideas. And if something doesn't work, we know we can try, A, B, C, all the way down to Z. And that is something that our new teachers don't have. They might only have two strategies, A and B. And once they've used those two strategies, which they've been using all year, they are fresh out of ideas. And sometimes it's great just to hear, oh, I did this once, or this worked for me one time with a class, or this worked with me for a child once. That can be really helpful. And then the final thing, I guess, is just being a listening ear, just checking in on them and seeing if there's anything that they need to talk about, anything that they're worried about, anything that they want to celebrate. Sometimes it's not always about the worries, but about the celebrations. And it can be really lonely being in a classroom as one adult to all of those children. And if you're going home to a family that doesn't know anything about teaching, it's hard to celebrate those small wins. And as veteran teachers, we can really be there to listen to those small wins and congratulate them and revel in that joy.
Those are such good tips, especially I think not assuming that they know what to do at this point, these new teachers. like you said, that Mary Poppins bag just is not full enough yet. And they are relying on us to help add some tools to that kit. And I think it's a veteran teacher, it's easy to say, well, like, oh, they look like they're doing fine, so everything must be going okay, when the reality may be like they don't want to feel like a burden. I think new teachers so often don't want to feel like I've taken all year long. I can't take any more from this team, from my coworkers. So they're just not going to raise their concerns or their questions. And in reality, they're really drowning, even though we're coming up to the end of the school year. This is brand new for them still. So I think it's just, like you said, it's just so important. Don't be afraid to ask what they need. Don't be afraid to, open the door and say, hey, what can I do to help you figure this out? Here's the tips for making testing something that we can all live through. Like that matters so much.
It really does matter so much. Even just being honest with them, saying, look, I'm so tired too. Do you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to take a mental health day off work, and you can do that too if you need to. Or encouraging them to take a day off if they're not well. That is another really important thing. Even saying to them, look, I can see you're not well. Take the day off. Let me help you plan for the sub that's going to come in, or let me do it for you. And I know that veteran teachers are probably thinking, I've got a million things on my list, but that would mean the world to a new teacher, especially if they've never planned for a sub before. One of the questions I've been asked on podcasts before is like, how do I plan for a sub as a new teacher? And as veteran teachers, that just comes naturally, but we forget that everything is a learning curve for them.
Yeah, I remember the first time I had to get a sub. It was really early in the school year because as a new teacher, I had to go to a new teacher training and just being like, oh my gosh, what am I even supposed to do? And luckily, Heidi was already teaching and she taught the same grade as me. And so she's just like, this is the sub plans I like to use in September. Here's what you need to add to it about your day. I mean, she helped me so much because I just had no idea. Like, I don't even know what I need to know yet. How do I know what a sub needs to know?
Yes.
So how can veteran teachers balance guiding those new teachers with allowing those new teachers to also develop their own teaching style? Do you have any advice for that?
This is tricky because I think new teachers have come up with all of the most recent research. They're energized, they're excited, they're getting lots and lots of information online, on Instagram, all of these different places. And as veteran teachers, sometimes we think, well, we know what works, don't we? This is what works. So I think that you're right in that question, saying that there is a balance. We need to let new teachers give things a go their own way, but notice and just be aware when there are little struggles that come up or when they ask questions. If they're asking a question, it means they really don't know. And then is the time to do a bit of a deep dive and be specific about your answer. So if they're saying things like, I don't really know, how do you set up your reading groups? They don't want you just to say, group your kids in 5 different groups, you have different activities, and then one group reads with you. They need more of a breakdown of that. Give them a good hour, sit down, talk about exactly how you do it. How do you get those groups? What sort of activities do you do? Give them some suggestions. But if you feel like they're going off and they're giving things a try, encourage that as well. I think that there is a fine line, and it's just like our students. We do the same. Sometimes we really explicitly teach an idea or a concept, and then sometimes we let them explore and we let them really go with what they want to learn. And it's kind of the same sort of thing.
And I also think it's important as a veteran teacher to be open to the ideas that a new teacher can bring. They have had different experiences and different training and different opportunities to learn than, we've had while we're in our own classrooms teaching. I know when I was a new teacher, I started doing morning meeting. I don't know if you're familiar with that in Australia.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything that was happening at my school at the time. And it really meant a lot to me that some other teachers at my school became interested in it. And I was given time on a professional development day to teach the faculty about morning meeting and the benefits it brought to my classroom. As a brand new first year teacher, that meant a lot that they saw me as a professional. They understood that I also had a point of view. I don't know, how to get my kids to sit quietly in an assembly yet. And I don't know how to deal with this recess fight, but I'm not coming at this completely empty either. So it's just so much give and take.
And it's giving that new teacher a time to shine as well. I worked with a new teacher a couple of years ago, and she came in, she was so excited, and we were on a team. So I was a job share with another teacher that had been teaching for a really long time. There was another teacher that had been teaching forever as well, and then this new teacher. And she came in with the most exciting, fresh ideas. But I remember one of the ideas, she really wanted to do this special craft for Mother's Day. She had it in her head, she really wanted to do it. And the other teachers just shut it down. They said, it's going to take too long. It's going to be so messy. It's going to be hard to manage. And, that was right. But in the grand scheme of things, it would have been much better if we just gave that one a go and been on her team. And then she probably could have learnt that for herself. Or she might have said to everybody, you know what, I did it this way and it wasn't so messy, or it wasn't so difficult to manage the kids. So I think sometimes that we can be quick to shut down their ideas, but it's really good to take them on board. Like the morning meeting is a perfect example. I can see veteran teachers saying, oh, well, that's just more time out of our day. And I like the kids to come in and silent read because it gets them all settled. Then we just get straight into the curriculum. But as we know, there's so many benefits to everyone sitting down and connecting like as a classroom community. And if they hadn't have had you as a new teacher giving that, modeling to them, then maybe they would have never known about it. As a result, the kids have really benefited.
Yeah, like we're all still learners, even when we're the teacher or the teacher of the teachers.
Yes.
We're still helping each other.
And I think teachers love to help. And so it's really, I think, easy for most veteran teachers to want to take these new teachers under their wings and help them and love on them. It may be harder for them to be open to, what are you bringing? What new ideas are you bringing to the table? And giving the new teacher opportunities to shine. I think that might take a little more focused effort for most teachers who think they already have it all figured out, because we all think that.
That is very true.
Well, we like to end our interviews by asking our guests to share a teacher-approved tip with our listeners. You've already given us lots of tips, but if you have another small, actionable tip that teachers can apply in their classrooms today, we would love to hear it.
Okay, so this is a bit of a random tip. I wanted to give something completely different from what we've been talking about. But one thing that I think teachers have a lot of trouble with, new, veteran, anywhere in the middle, is getting their class from A to B quietly. And I don't know if I'm a huge believer in that. I'm like, you get from A to B, but I do understand that it's disruptive to other classes, and that's what leadership wants. So let's say in an ideal world, leadership want you to be quiet walking from A to B. One thing that I love to do is turn it into a game with my students. So I have them in lines, the traditional lines. I stand in the front and we play a game. I just made up the name called Line Freeze. I'm sure there's teachers out there that have got better names for a game like this. I'm not the first teacher to ever play this game. But as we walk along, I turn around and it's a bit like Spotlight, or I don't know what you would call it in America. And the kids all have to freeze. And then I keep walking and then I turn around and the kids have to freeze. And I always say to them, you need to be silent while you're walking. And when you're frozen, your lips need to be frozen as well as your bodies. And it just is a really fun game. And I've played it with kindergarten and I've played it with year 6, and it's always a winner.
Those are the best kind of tips, to take something that matters, like a procedure that's important, but to find ways to invest it with a little bit of fun and whimsy, some surprise and delight, to just like, this isn't a chore. We're making this happy and enjoyable for everyone. That is such a fun tip. I'm sad I don't have any people I'm going to be leading through hallways for a while. I really want to play that now.
Who knew that you would wish to lead a whole class through a hallway?
Yes.
Ashley, we're so glad that you could join us today. This was such a fun conversation. I think our listeners are going to be so excited about helping the new teachers that they're interacting with at their schools. And I think this will be a great listen for all of them.
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it has been an honor.
We'll talk to you again soon.
Chat soon. Bye.
That is it for today's episode. Thank you so much to Ashley from Rainbow Skies for New Teachers podcast for being here on the show today and sharing her great tips for new teachers and for how veteran teachers can support the new teachers in their lives. If you are a new teacher yourself or you know one, you'll want to check out Rainbow Skies Surviving Your First Years Guide, and we will put a link to that in your show notes. You'll love this free guide to help new teachers become prepared and self-assured.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Teacher Approved. I'm Heidi.
And I'm Emily. Thank you for listening. Be sure to follow or subscribe in your podcast app so that you never miss an episode.
You can connect with us and other teachers in the Teacher Approved Facebook group. We'll see you here next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
I told you there were so many great teacher chats during that episode. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as Emily, Heidi, and myself enjoyed creating that episode and talking all things teachers. Now, don't forget, if you have not signed up to our membership, go and do that. Sign up to the waitlist so you don't miss out on this awesome community that is coming in January 2025. Now, if you're listening to this in real time and you celebrate the most merriest of Christmases to you, if you don't, happy holidays. And if you're listening to this in the future, I hope you have a great day. There are rainbows ahead, my friend, and together we're unstoppable.